Alright, before we start, let me explain the title and the way this video is structured. DICE released their patch notes, I got working on it. The patch notes have almost nothing of value in them, so in this video I drop extra details towards the end of the video that I think most people won't be going over, but the other community manager for DICE did then drop actual statistical information, or at least that's what I'm now expecting them to do based on what's been said. Why they put it into two different things I don't know, but again, I and we as content creators simply can't keep up with how they're doing things, how disorganized it is. I don't know why it's not all in one patch note thing, because they're patch notes, for God's sake. So that's why this is what the patch notes don't tell you. But what I'm going to talk about is also analysis of what the other community manager is probably going to post that I imagine other creators won't be doing. Oh my god, what a mess. I'm talking so much. I hope you enjoy. Ladies and gents, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy. This is Battlefield 5, and we have the patch notes for the 6.2 update, which is supposed to drop tomorrow at the time of making and releasing this video. So that should be on Wednesday. Quick little update here. The patch has now been delayed until Thursday, so don't expect it on the Wednesday, despite what I may say in the rest of this video. And also, this may or may not alter when I release videos. I can still do tomorrow if I have time, because we have Synthic. I have contacts within the community that can give me information, etc. I don't actually need the patch to be live. We'll have to see. Okay, carry on. And what I'm going to do today is go through it, pick out the key parts, explain what my initial impressions are. I'll also link to the patch notes in the description if you want to see everything that's there, because I will just pick out the stuff that I think is really interesting and cover the key things and break them down. And these really are just my initial impressions. I do already know some stuff. I do have some stuff to talk about, and I'm going to go in depth with it, the good and the really concerning, in the next video I make, which is probably going to be out on Wednesday, so the day of the update. It's going to be interesting. This is not the patch that's being presented to you. There are definite problems, so be sure to check in for that. But today I'm just going to go through, let you know what there is, give you a brief little rundown. All the footage is me using SMGs today, because sometimes I just want to use guns that are good. It's no fun trying to play something like Team Deathmatch, which I did for a lot of this footage, without an SMG and the ability to heal when everyone else is using that. So yeah, just give me a day off where I can use whatever I want. Let me know in the comments what you think of what I go through today, and let's get into this. The opening blurb of the patch notes are: our big focus for update 6.2 targets a revision of our existing weapon balance, returning the base times kill values of most weapons back to the experience found at the start of chapter 5. I want to interject here and say that when it says most, that's vague. I will go over a lot of this tomorrow, but there are some key differences, and the narrative being woven by DICE isn't quite as clear cut as it may sound. Carrying on, at distance we've improved the damage drop-off to ensure that the pace remains satisfying, and modified our recoil values to ensure that guns are both dangerous in combat but harder to control. So this should at least partially mitigate that laser beam feel at the minute, with a lot of people running around, being able to do basically what they want with almost any gun, invalidating lots of the weapon choices, and reducing that skill gap so that even bad players can then kill good players if they can just, control minimal recoil and shoot straight in the right situation. We did desperately need that, and that's very good, and there'll be more damage at range, so you're not just tickling people with a pea shooter now past, 50 or 75 meters or whatever. Alongside these changes, we're also pleased to finally bring tank customization to the game. Customize your tanks with new paint jobs, blah blah blah, you get what it is. Onto the next section that says weapons and gadgets. Update 6.2 returns the base damage at range values on most weapons back to their previous standards used in 5.0. Once again, not quite, and they do, to their credit, say we will be maintaining a drop in range damage, but one that is smaller than has been used in both 5.2 and 5.2.2. That's not necessarily bad, by the way. Balancing is a tricky thing. We do need to tweak things sometimes, but the way they've done it does leave something to be desired here and there. Additionally, range damage is now based on weapons class rather than its rate of fire. That's important. We don't want SMGs hitting for the same damage at range as an assault rifle or an LMG or whatever, so that was very much needed, and that will keep things more within their defined roles. So in their words, assault rifles and LMGs will hit harder at range than SMGs with the equivalent rate of fire. So there shouldn't be confusion anymore about, why am I getting killed by that from there when it comes to bullet damage from different classes, although within the same class, I'm telling you now, there will be problems. Recoil and accuracy values have been adjusted to be consistent with the values used in 5.0. The only exception is the Type 2A, which has had a substantial increase in recoil to balance it within the SMG class. I hope that is actual balancing and not them nerfing it into the ground just because it's been complained about. When the game completely shifts basically in terms of gunplay, nerfing something massively when everything else is being altered is a risky way of playing it, so I hope they get it right. But regardless, a lot of you that are sick of the Type 2A will probably be happy to hear that. Onwards, bolt action rifles now have higher muzzle velocities across across the board. So basically it'll be easier to hit with bolt action rifles from range. I've gone into this before. I think on PC they're probably decent. On console they're a little underpowered statistically, but very, very good players can utilize them very, very well. We'll see if those become overpowered in the right hands and if they start to draw in line with other weapons for your average player. They've also increased the muzzle velocity on the Type 11, so that's a bit differentiated now from the Bren. And quite honestly now I'm reading this and I'm a little disappointed, to be honest. I've just scrolled through and there's no actual statistics in these patch notes. I wanted to go over those a bit today, so you definitely need to come back tomorrow because I'm going to handle all of that. I imagine none of the other big creators are going to be covering that because they're not in these notes, and I wish DICE had put some in for some comparison, but they haven't. However, I can only work with what's in front of me, so onwards. General changes. They've tweaked the damage values of the bazooka and the Panzerfaust. The bazooka now does slightly less damage, especially for poor angle hits, so the bazooka is now reflecting its role as a longer range sniper weapon. The Panzerfaust now does slightly more damage, especially at poor angles, returning it to the solid all-round reliable anti-tank weapon. And the bazooka now one-hits enemy planes. Lunge mine now does the correct damage and is more consistent. I've just thought, because of the thumbnail I've made, I already know this and I don't want it to be clickbait, so MMG is going to return to somewhere around their original bullets per kill value from the 5.0 update. I know that'll make some of you scared. They will be more potent again, but don't freak out yet. It remains to be seen how bad it is. They might not be problematic because their overall balancing compared with other things is not overly favourable, to be honest with you. So they are getting somewhat of a buff compared to what they are right now, but I don't think they'll be back to their super annoying ways. And the other half of the thumbnail, as we've already covered in this, the Type 2A is getting a heavy nerf, okay? I know this is all very muddled right now, but I expected these patch notes to have just more useful stuff in them, to be honest, but I guess they just wanted to go the general route and that's up to them. Onwards. A lot of these general changes I'm reading through are just things with fixing reloads or bugs and things, making it so that you can't fire the flamethrower while you're reloading, for example, and then cosmetic stuff and little clipping issues. Nothing overly interesting. They fixed a bug that would sometimes allow the spotting scope to spot enemies behind walls, so that's good because we'd seem to be spotted all the time at the minute, although I doubt that was a major player in that. Fixed an issue that would cause reloads not to count if the player healed during the reload animation. That's a great one, really pleased about that. Now we come to the vehicle section, and I'm really not the guy to analyze this bit and I'm not going to, but I will say that most of it doesn't look very impactful overall. However, I do want to highlight that there's going to be increased drag on the HE shells for tanks to reduce long-range tank sniping versus infantry. AT dedicated shells, which have less blast, are not affected by this change, and they've increased the damage of AT mines slightly. So AT mines are more powerful now, but more importantly, there won't be as much long-range sniping from tanks. Hopefully they'll find ways to move forwards a bit more and not just get destroyed, but they're starting to combat that problem of tanks sitting a mile off and there being nothing you can do about it, so that's cool. Now, next up, there are a few tweaks and fixes for maps and modes, none of them massive, and they've implemented a new audio prioritization system in order to reduce occurrences of important sounds being culled due to performance limitations. This results in more controlled and stable behavior for sounds such as vehicles, footsteps, and weapons. That brings us to the other section, by the way, but there's nothing massive in there. Honestly, for such a massive update, these patch notes tell us barely anything, so what I'm going to do is, after I finish reading these bits, I'm going to tell you a few little bits that lead us into tomorrow, because I want to give you some value. I don't feel like these patch notes provide value from DICE for the people reading them if you actually want some decent information, so I will try to. Stability and performance is being worked on. Specifically, they've said they fixed a crash that would occur when using the Russian language, and they fixed a crash that would occur if the player played the game for more than 5 hours in one go. Oh, Battlefield. I don't think many people are. Wait. And as always, you can provide your feedback to DICE on the forums, on the subreddit, in Discord, etc. So to just go into a little bit of detail about tomorrow, why it's important you come back, and to provide some of that value I just said I wanted to for you, because these patch notes are a massive letdown. They've omitted some stuff that was supposed to be in there, by the way. Basically, the 6.2 update does a disservice to some low rate of fire weapons compared with the higher rate of fire weapons. So things like the grease gun and stuff like that, they're not going to be fighting on the level playing field I think they should have, unfortunately. Higher rate of fire weapons will still be the thing to go for if you want to go for automatics. Semi-auto rifles are going to be absolutely fantastic, with recoil returning, with a lot of automatic weapons getting some, pretty sizable kicks down, some of them really massive actually, and with the higher rate of fire ones being the kings still, but with more recoil, so they're brought down a little bit anyway. Semi-auto rifles are going to have the room to really do some damage in that mid-range where a lot of fights can happen, especially if you're used to playing in that way. I've already said that MMGs are getting a buff compared to where they are right now, but still kind of a nerf compared to where they were before the the TTK changes. Self-loading rifles are going to be around. They'll be the ones to compete with the semi-auto rifles at the mid-range. Automatic assault weapons are going to be a little lackluster, I feel. Shotguns aren't being touched at all. They'll be the same as they were in this current update we're already in, which means they're probably still going to suffer. SMGs won't be as strong across the board as they are right now, but there will still be some standout options. And higher rate of fire is still going to be the thing to go for unless you want absolute long-range consistency, but in that case, using an SMG generally isn't the way to go, especially with more recoil. I'd be interested to see what this does to things like the Sten, by the way. That was the reliable option back in the day. Now with us returning something like that, but with some noticeable tweaks and basically nerfs, what's it going to do to guns like that? I'm really looking forward to seeing how that pans out. And where LMGs are concerned, it's kind of like the SMGs and the assault rifles. Higher rate of fire ones will have the advantage due to the balancing put into place, which I will all explain in my next video. Unless you want to go for absolute long range consistency again, as I said with the SMGs, then you can go with the slower firing ones and try and melt people from afar if you don't want to play aggressive or versatile in any sort of way. And so that's kind of a lead in to tomorrow. Please do come back if you want the full explanation when I've got a lot more time to go through it. It is interesting and concerning, but there are some good things as well, and I hope you get something out of this that you're not getting elsewhere, because those patch notes really aren't great. If you did enjoy the video, a like would be massively appreciated. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications to stay up to date, because I've got loads of content coming out at the minute, and all the links to my social media, including Patreon, can be found in the description and my pinned comment. Here is the Board of Awesome for the epic people who already support me on Patreon. They're absolute heroes, and I love them all deeply and of course, often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with all that said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters. People don't like being killed by things really quickly, and that's whether it's balanced or not again. Shotguns are actually pretty underpowered in this game right now for its design, and yet people complain about being killed by shotguns.